a heist film starring Sylvester Stallone. Let's talk about Armor. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watch Your Pass, and I'm here to talk about Armor, which is coming to theaters, digital, and on demand on November 22nd, 2024. It is a new heist film starring Sylvester Stallone, Jason Patric, Dash Mihok, and Josh Wiggins. And is this heist something that you should participate in? Well, my hot take is I was kind of between a watch later and a pass on it. I think ultimately it's a watch later, but it was kind of between those two. So it's not great. It's fine. There's things I loved about it. I love the cast. I liked the kind of like setup, but it doesn't really have a ton that happens. There's a lot of CG effects. I didn't really love the ending. So overall, it was fine. It's not a great movie. I would wait for it to maybe come to streaming. Just put it on streaming, just so you can see like, it was a fun Sylvester Stallone character. It was a nice setup. So there are some things I did like about this, but I wouldn't like go too far out of your way to see this movie. So all that being said, I'll tell you a little about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the recap section. If you don't know what happens in this movie, I would turn off when they get there. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free. Let you know when I get to those spoilers. So in Armor, you have an armored car crew. They're collecting money and delivering it to, I assume, some sort of central bank. I don't know what armored cars do, but I assume they pick up money, take it somewhere, take it to a more secure space. Whatever. They are taking this money, but an unfortunate encounter leads to a standoff that threatens both of them. Do they give up the money? Do they survive? Well, you have to watch the movie to find out. So, things I liked about this movie. The first, I love the cast. I like Sylvester Stallone in this. He was a fun character. It was fun to see him back on the screen. I mean, I love when big stars do like small projects. And this was a nice meaty project. He's a leader of one of the crews, and so he definitely has like a role throughout the film. I also like the rest of the cast, but it was really fun to see Sylvester Stallone. Second thing I love the setup. Like it's a good setup here. You got a nice mix of characters. You got this predicament, beautiful scenery. I love the scenery here. So overall, it is a nice setup. I just wish that more happened once the setup was done. So all that being said, things I didn't love as much. The first, and probably like, the main one, there's not that much that happens. Like after the initial heist, the pace, the kind of like action elements of this really slow down. It feels like, kind of like Phone Booth, the movie from 90s, I think. You got like one location, they're isolated there. There's not a ton that happens, and you just have to kind of keep doing things to keep the viewer engaged, even though not a lot happens. I mean, it's a good location for an indie film. It is a good concept for an indie film. I understand why they did it this way, but once the kind of like setup is done, it is a fairly slow movie. Second thing I didn't love as much, there's a lot of CG effects, pretty much all CG effects. There's some like, you know, car crash looking things, but I think those are just like cars that they already had crashed and the effects were all CG. But all the gunfire, all the blood, all the other effects are all CG, and they look very noticeable. And the last thing I didn't love as much, I didn't love the ending. It's okay. It just there was this turn and it didn't make a ton of sense. It gets the movie done, but the ending itself didn't make a ton of sense to me. So all that being said, Armor comes to theaters digital on demand on November 22nd, 2024. Like I said, I think you should watch it later. Wait for it to come to streaming. But if you do check it out, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And I'm going to really quickly go into a recap right now. So if you don't know what happens in this movie, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So in Armor, you have James, who seems to be like this old grizzled cop. He's leading like an AA group here. And after the AA meeting, a young person drives up in an armored car, picks him up, and they seem to be going about their way. It seems like they're a two-person crew who are working these armored cars, delivering money. Now we find out later that this younger person is Casey, his son. They're a father and son team. They're both doing this armored car route to, make money, whatever. And so they're working together on this. Now, James is a former cop. He apparently lost his job, lost his time on the force after his wife died, and he turned to drinking, which affected his job. And so that is also why he's in these AA meetings. That's why he's doing all this. But it seems like he has had kind of like a downward fall. But he's working, he's helping people, he's working with his son, which must be fun. But it seems like he is still just not that great of a father. Like his son has to like twist his arm to come by for dinner to see him and his wife and their soon to be child. So it seems like James is going through a lot of stuff. Now, one day on their route, they're hauling some cases, and James, who's like he's an old cop, he's a stickler for like protocol, comes to one of the banks and finds out that there's an extra case. Like their clipboard says 3, but there's 4, and this extra case is very heavy. And James is like, look, like you don't have the paperwork, like we can't take it. And the boss, the bank manager basically threatens him and says like, what are you, like a rent-a-cop? Like, what do you care? Just haul the boxes, do your job. Threatens to like also call the armored car company and say that he got, and give some more information about James's past, that basically got fired for being a drunk from the force. And so James just capitulates, takes the extra case, and they keep going. Now, not a good decision for James, because on their route, when they get to a bridge, they get attacked by like a black van. And so there's a decent car chase scene where that black van is trying to like get them to pull over, trying to stop them. And eventually they get stopped on a bridge. Another van is at one side of the bridge. They have to stop there. They reverse, and the other van is there, and they are now in a standoff. So it's these, you know, team of two, this team of like paramilitary troops led by Sylvester Stallone, this person named Routt, and they are trying to like capture this car and get something in there. Now, it's interesting because they do stop them, but like they're not wearing masks. You would expect that they would be wearing masks. That would seem to be the bare minimum you'd want if you were going to take down an armored car in broad daylight in the middle of a road. But they are not wearing masks. So after they get stopped, a shootout occurs. James is apparently a pretty good shot. He takes out two of the bad guys, but they are eventually forced into the car, and the armored truck at this point has been tipped onto its side. So they're forced in the armored car. They're in the armored compartment, so they're safe. But for how long? Well, unfortunately for the crew, I think there were 6 original people. 2 died in this assault, and one of them was their demolitions person. So their original plan was to blow off the doors. They apparently can't do that because their demo person's dead. So they got to come up with new ideas. And unfortunately for our friends James and Casey, this is, I think, Louisiana. It's some hot place. And so being in a car in the heat is not going to be good for them long term. Oh, and during that initial shootout, the very first one, Casey, the son, got shot in the leg. So he is not doing great. I mean, he's fine. They stopped the bleeding, but he is hurt. He can't move as well. So it's really up to James to do a lot of it. Now, while they're waiting to figure out what the crew's next move is going to be, they open the cases. And one of the cases, the one that was really heavy, the one that like it seemed like that bank manager forced on them, they find out has a bunch of gold bars, and they think it's cartel gold. It feels like this crew is there to steal the cartel gold from them. So someone must have tipped them off. Someone must have been on the inside. But it also feels like James and Casey aren't going to be doing that well, because they're now witnesses to this. They've seen all their faces because no one's wearing a mask. So it seems like they are not in a good position. Now, eventually, the crew tries to gas them out. They put some tear gas cans around the car, around the armored truck. But James and Casey are industrious. They plug up all the holes to make sure the tear gas doesn't get in there too much. So some of it gets in, but not a ton. But if they plug up the holes, that means that they're going to run out of air too. So it's not a great overall plan, but it's what they had to do because there was tear gas. Now, after, they plug up the holes, they taunt the crew a little bit, and then keep waiting. Now, they can't call for help. They tried to call for help initially, but apparently this crew has jammers on the radio, so they couldn't call for help. I don't know why their company didn't like wonder where they were, but I guess it was an all-day route, so they probably won't worry about it until like later in the day. So this seems like this crew knew what to do, and they knew a lot about the plan. Now, the next step is to drill. So get a drill, put it on the back of the truck, and try to drill through the lock. And again, this is a full CG scene. It doesn't look great. But while this is happening, James comes up with a new plan. But before this, we find out what happened to James's wife. Now, we find out that like a while ago on a vacation when Casey was much younger, they were driving. James was off duty, but some kid sped past him at 100 miles an hour. So he turned on his lights. As both his kid and his wife are like upset about this. Like, you promised you weren't going to do this, but come on, the dude was driving 100 miles an hour. Like, that's dangerous. So James pulls him over, gives him a talking to, doesn't give him a ticket, gives him a warning, says like, hey, don't do that. If I see you speeding again, I'm going to haul you to jail, but just don't do it. Drive safely. And the guy's like, okay. It's a tense scene because they're like not sure if he's going to like shoot at James or something. So after this, James gets back to the car, gets in, and then boom, their car is hit by a truck. I don't know how the truck didn't see them. It was a police car on a straight road with their lights on. Somehow the truck didn't see them. And so in this accident, James was apparently wearing a seatbelt. Casey was apparently wearing a seatbelt. The wife apparently wasn't. She is, up against the windshield basically. So it seems like this killed her. I mean, she should have been wearing her seatbelt. And also that truck should have stopped. And so I guess this was the big moment that then caused James to drink. He blamed himself. Like, I don't know, man. Like, yeah, you shouldn't have stopped, but I mean, the truck should have stopped too. Shouldn't have plowed into you. Your wife should have been wearing the seatbelt. It seems like there's a lot of blame here. I don't really see the big issue, but this is what caused James to start drinking, caused him to then lose his job. Casey apparently blamed him for a very long time for stopping this person, but eventually got over it. So that's the backstory. Now, This drill is happening. James has to think of something else to do. He makes a Molotov cocktail because he's an alcoholic. He's got alcohol. He makes a Molotov cocktail, sneaks out through this like roof hatch, throws the cocktail on the drill and the driller, and like uses a taser to tase Smoke, one of the other people in the crew. He makes it back just in time. They close the hatch. This hatch doesn't look very strong. It looks plasticky. It doesn't look like this is going to be a hatch that would survive much, but apparently that's enough to seal them in, and they have stopped the drilling. So now there are 3 people left because the drill person was burned by the Molotov cocktail. He's down. So Smoke, the person that was tased, keeps getting angrier and angrier. And but Rook is like, look, no one dies. He's always insisted that no one dies. He told James and Casey this, but I don't think they believed him. I mean, I understand why they wouldn't believe him. But he told James and Casey this, and so he still is holding to it. Smoke eventually gets angry. He gets impatient and shoots the other 2. He shoots one of them in the head and shoots Rook in the chest. So Smoke is now in charge. He gets a van, drives it into the truck, pushes it all the way to the edge of the bridge, and then gets a grenade launcher, shoots a grenade under the van, boom, blows it up. Van goes over the bridge. I'm like, that doesn't seem like a good plan at all. None of that seems good. Why would you want to like throw the van over the bridge into the water? You're not gonna be able to get the money that way. Like it's gonna sink. Do you have scuba gear? I don't. The crew didn't look like they had scuba gear, so it was just a weird plan. I mean, I mean, maybe he was just spiteful at this point, but it didn't seem like that was a way for him to get the gold. But that's what happened. The truck is now in the water. James and Casey are forced to get out, and again, when they get out, Smoke doesn't just shoot them from up on the bridge, which you would think he would do, shoot them to stop them. He waits for them to get onto the shore after they swim out of the truck onto the shore, and then he starts fighting hand to hand against James. I'm like, that's not a good plan at all. Like, just shoot them with your gun, and they're in the armored car, or when they get out of the armored car, or when they're swimming, just shoot them. All is done. They fight hand to hand. There's a hand to hand fight between James and Smoke, and eventually, boom, Smoke gets shot. Seems like Rook survived his shot to the chest, and he just like sniper shoots with a rifle, long ways away, moving target, very difficult shot, but he shoots Smoke and stops the fight. Now, Rook eventually goes down to see James and Casey, and like apologizes. Says like, oh, the whole plan was no one dies, and then he says basically like, I hope you'll just forget I was here. And James is like, well, I'm a cop. He's like, I know, but I hope you'll just forget I was here. And James agrees. So it seems like he is learning from his hard ways. He didn't like, say, no, I insist that you are going to be in trouble. He's like, okay, yeah, I understand. So Rook then walks down the road, leaves the whole scene, doesn't get any money, which I imagine is not going to be good for him, but we'll see. And he goes down the road and gets picked up in a car. And that the bank manager that yelled at us earlier, that made James and Casey take the extra case, picks him up and drives him away. And that's the movie. The camera pans out. We hear some sirens. Seems like some cops are coming. And so it seems like now everything will be fine. But that is the movie. That is Armor. Like I said, some interesting decisions. Like, they were on a bridge all day. No one saw them. Like, that seems like a very bad place to set an ambush, a bridge. That is a choke point. There are going to be cars coming there. No one saw them. They're using all these weapons, all these guns, these grenades. No one reported anything. They Smoke decided to throw the van over, which was a cool scene. Lots of CG there, but it was a cool scene. But like, that doesn't seem to get him the gold. So all these not great decisions overall. But look, I enjoyed the cast. I like seeing Sylvester Stallone in this. I liked him as like this like tough bad guy with a heart of gold. And, I liked the setup. I thought it was an interesting setup. So overall, look, I think you should stream it. Wait for it to come to streaming. But if you do watch it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you. So in Armor, you have James.